The identification, the underlying science is valid to identify a particular chemical substance. The problem is that the people that come in to testify about it don't necessarily really know what the science is. And the process by which they test it has holes. So for example, the person takes the drugs, they put it in a machine, and the machine does the reading. How do they know the machine didn't make a mistake? How do they know the machine didn't cross-contaminate? How do you know that this particular substance is really cocaine and hasn't had minor synthetic alterations made to it that take it outside the scope of whatever the chemical substance is? So there's things like that that can be done. DNA is a great example of it. DNA is real and it does work and the science is valid. The problem is that it's like people say DNA and then they assume that that means they win. I've actually had prosecutors argue that the guy is accused of killing his wife and his DNA is in the apartment, and the response is he lives there. Of course his DNA is in the apartment. That doesn't show anything. And in fact, it can go the other way. What if someone else's DNA is on the murder weapon? It shows your client didn't do it. Or at least there's another suspect that they ought to go identify. So it's not the be-all, end-all. DNA, there's actual cases where people have planted DNA at the scene, although that's unusual. There are events where there's an explanation for someone's DNA being at the scene, and there's an explanation for someone else's DNA not being at the scene. So if somebody breaks into the house and they wear gloves, there's a good chance you're not going to see DNA on a lot of things. And the state says, aha, well, nobody's DNA is on it. Yeah, because they were wearing gloves. So a second problem is contamination. If they don't do everything exactly right, they can contaminate samples with other DNA around it. They can fail to preserve it. The law enforcement officers can make a mistake and even breathe on it and get DNA. It's so sensitive that it can pick up even a single strand of DNA when you amplify it to do the analysis. So DNA is useful, and DNA fingerprinting, as which they do these days, is good, but it is not the be-all, end-all.